Hurricane Debby made landfall yesterday morning between Cedar Key and Perry, Florida, as an 85-mile-per-hour hurricane. I saw one wind gust upwards to 99 miles an hour in Florida, and some of the isolated areas, in fact, reached up to 20 inches of rainfall over the past couple of days. Now Debby is downgraded to a tropical storm, but it will. The problem is it's going to be shifting off the coast of the Carolinas and leave just torrential flooding. For the rest of the region, we are experiencing a fairly decent August cold front trying to sag down in the middle of the country. That's going to spawn a renewed threat for severe storms later today, while much of the Pacific is actually really active. In fact, we had 4 named storms at the exact same time. 2 have now dissipated, but these left no threat to land. But the Pacific is actually very active as well. But yes, closer to home, there is the concern with Debby, now down to a 45-mile-per-hour tropical storm. Going forward, it's not going to be a wind problem. It's going to be a rain problem, and a serious rainmaker if that, because the concern is now it's going to go back out over the Atlantic and just kind of sit there several hundred miles offshore and get trapped in kind of low steering currents. And you can see the movement. This is pretty much every day, folks. That's Wednesday. There's Thursday. It could not even still be in South Carolina even by Friday. That is 4 days from now. Very concerned about extensive, if not almost historic flooding. Could ranks right up there with Florence back in 2018 across that region, where South Carolina picked up 23 inches in some isolated spots, and parts of North Carolina upwards to almost 30 inches of rain. We could be looking at some of those totals within this region, unfortunately, especially still we have 4 or 5 days left of very heavy rainfall. But it's really not going to be until Saturday morning where it's going to be finally extended into Virginia and eventually get picked up by a trough and moved off to the northeast, dumping those torrential heavy rains across the northeast. So we still have flooding concerns even off the east coast as we get deeper into the week. So here's the setup for today, heading into tomorrow morning. Yes, there's the eye or the remnants of what will be a weak just tropical storm out there off the southeast coast, about a couple hundred miles. It's just going to sit there and it's going to dump its heavy rain bands, into the coast. And so we could be looking at, 2, possibly even upwards to almost 3-inch rainfall rates at times, with just torrential rains as it moves out of Florida, goes into the southeastern portions of Georgia, as well as into the Carolinas, especially along the coast, getting into North Carolina. So it's really not going to be going anywhere anytime soon, and just those soils are just completely saturated. And yes, we could be looking at some devastating totals, but we do have concern for severe storms today as well, out ahead of that cool front. So we saw some severe storms yesterday. We're going to be seeing a renewed tornado threat today across the northern portions of Ohio, as well as into Pennsylvania. We do have some, tornadic activity, complements of Debby as well. So yes, even into South Carolina and North Carolina, we've got a concern for more tornadoes across this region, as this cool front will slowly be shifting southbound, and it's going to be running into this ridge of high pressure. So right now, we've got the ridge of high pressure across the plains and much of the desert southwest. Those areas are going to be baking for several more days, while you're experiencing pretty pleasant light conditions across the northern regions, as well as into the Great Lakes. And then, of course, there is Debby offshore and not really going anywhere anytime soon. So yes, there are some those record temperatures as we head into Wednesday. All those areas encircled, we're looking at possibly 16 record high temperatures, all the way up to 109 there in Amarillo, 108 there in Oklahoma, while you're just experiencing the pleasant 70-degree temperatures across a good chunk of the northern plains, as well as into the upper Midwest, going into those areas into the Northeast as well. Then, of course, there's the remnants. And then with compressional heating further south, you're going to heat up in a big way out ahead of that cool front. But there's the concern as we head through Friday. You know, with the combination of already over a foot of rain in a lot of spots in the Carolinas, we're going to be adding at least another foot of rain, if not more, in some isolated spots. Those could reach those 2-foot totals, unfortunately, and even some 30-inch totals is likely not out of the question by the time we head into Friday sometime, as the remnants finally gets it up in, into the Virginia area. But yes, there's the latest update from the Weather Prediction Center, adding potentially another, a foot to even 15, even possibly 18 inches of rainfall on top of the 12 to 15 you've already had. So we could be looking at from some serious historic totals by the time this is all said and done. But don't let your guard down further north as well, because we also have a flood threat further north as it gets the remnants finally gets on the move going into Friday and especially into Saturday across the Northeast, as well as it gets picked up by a trough as well. And then your area also has some serious rainfall to contend with across the eastern portions of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, getting into New York, as well as into Long Island, those areas back into Massachusetts, Rhode Island. Yes, there's the remnants. I mean, you can see where Debby is by Friday morning. It's not really gone too much at all, maybe a couple hundred miles, if that. So that is some serious rain over a 4-day totals, and finally it will be be on the move as it continues to try to lift further up to the northeast. But there's the cool front, so by Friday, yeah, there's the cool boundary, 10, 15, upwards to almost 20 degrees below average in some of these areas across the Central Plains. And you're going to be waiting for that cold front. I think it actually makes the Oklahoma City region, you're going to be experiencing those low 80s as far as highs heading into Saturday, while you're going to be baking further south into across the deep south, and especially into Texas. But there's the concern, folks. Such a widespread area of high risk for excessive flooding. That's very rare to see. This is a rare event, folks. We're talking anywhere from Savannah to Augusta to Charleston, all the way to Raleigh, down to Wilmington. That's a huge swath where they could be picking up some significant totals, if not devastating totals, of heavy rainfall. And there's another swath of heavy rainfall too, getting up into Philadelphia, as well as into Long Island. So yes, don't let your guard down. You could be picking up some 6 to 8 inch totals up there as well. And by the time we head into Saturday, there's the system finally going to be on the move, just basically into Virginia by then, while we be watching kind of a glancing blow. I think this actually gets into Oklahoma, but it's probably going to be putting on the brakes by the time it actually makes into Texas. But this trough will be swinging east, so it's actually going to be merging and being the main culprit of finally lifting the remnants of Debby out of here off the East Coast. But I don't think that really happens until Sunday. So because Saturday, it's still raining big time over a good part of the East Coast, especially the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. We could be looking at some heavy rainfall and some very extensive flooding across this region, with those moderate risk for excessive flooding in place heading into Saturday. But I don't think it's not until heading into Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, that heavy rainfall will continue to shift, getting into Vermont and New Hampshire, back into Massachusetts and to Connecticut, down here to Nantucket, and eventually heading into Maine going into Saturday night. But it's not really until Sunday that I think everything's pretty much gone. So yeah, it came ashore yesterday, and then we're still going to be dealing with the remnants all the way through Saturday night. So we still have another 5 to 6 days still to contend with what's to come with Debby. And yes, this could be an historic event, complements right up there with Hurricane Florence, where they did pick up 23 inches in some isolated spots in South Carolina, and upwards to over 30 inches in isolated spots, as well as into North Carolina. We're talking some similar totals likely to unfold with Debby still to come. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update while I protect you before and after the storm.